Right, Rob, on to rugby after the Currie Cup final, as I mentioned, which the Cheetahs won for the first time in a while. Alistair Coetzee announced his touring squad for the autumn-November internationals, and some exciting new faces. I guess obviously a lot of it based on form, a lot of them Cheetahs and Bulls players, the Currie Cup finalists. But also some criticism for some of the experienced players, particularly European-based players that have been omitted. What are your thoughts on this squad?
It's a slightly confusing sort of analysis, really, because two squads were picked. Understandably, a separate one for what is a very separate occasion, a non-test fixture against the Barbars, which in many ways serves as the warm-up for the sort of tour proper, if you like. You don't want to underestimate a Barbars game because they're always quite special occasions.
Yeah.
But the Springboks have chosen a lot of the sort of the emphasis on the sort of rookie players, especially guys who've featured really well in the Currie Cup this year. Get their opportunity to impress for the Barbars, and then of course a select few of them have been chosen also to go onward to stay with the team. Jean-Luc Dupré, Roelof Smit, Francois Venter, those sort of players.
Sergio
Peterson, a very key one, yes.
Yeah.
Are staying on, and that's quite gratifying. I think a lot of South African fans will be pretty chuffed that they're in the mix. We've had lots of problems in sort of midfield, back three area this season, and I think someone like Francois Venter brings a bit of stability potentially to that outside centre position. He can play number 12 as well, I think. So you know that's perhaps something that will aid the Springboks. Jean de Jong, as we know, is one of the several absentees through injury from this tour. So it's an opportunity for a new face like Francois Venter perhaps to come in and do well. I think there'll be widespread feeling, not just in Bloemfontein, but countrywide, that Sergio Peterson has got a very deserved call-up on the wing. My one reservation is that he's not the biggest guy in the world, and I think the South African backline this year has been a little bit bullied at sort of in contact, in collision. It's still quite an important aspect of the game, and I think as long as they pick a few reasonably sort of physically stout players around him, he can do well. But if he's in a collectively small backline, especially on an end-of-year test tour, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge. But there's no doubt in my mind that if you can sort of free him up, put him into space, he's a very elusive, very creative rugby player, tenacious on defence too. I'm not saying that he's a shrinking violet in that respect. So there are some good calls. Someone like Lizo Gqoboka, nice call to sort of beef up the front row. Nice to see a new face. You know, we've had the usual sort of peripheral players like Trevor Nyakani, who sort of seems to somehow always be on the periphery of things. That's a little bit of a shake-up now with someone like a young Lizo Gqoboka coming into the side. So I'm quite pleased in that respect. But from an experience point of view, I must say I lament the fact that Dwayne Vermeulen's not there. It's Alistair Coetzee has vigorously denied that he's absent because of his criticism of South African rugby. One of the few current players to actually speak out quite vehemently about the state of South African rugby in the last few days. And there's still a part of me, the conspiracy theorist in me, still wonders whether there's some element at play there that he's being sidelined a little bit because there's a slight rebellious sort of side to him. I still think that he's the kind of guy, if he's fit enough to play for Toulon, I would say he's fit enough to give you 50 or 60 minutes in hard grinding conditions in the Northern Hemisphere for the Springboks, who desperately need some go forward. So I'm still not happy that he's not there. But a lot of other very good calls by Alistair Coetzee. Hats off to him for slightly freshening things when they did need freshening.
The not so fresh players, Garen, that were omitted, also Morné Steyn, not there, and any other notable names?
Well, Morné Steyn, obviously the biggest player not included that was fit, if that makes sense. There are obviously a lot that have been ruled out through injury, as Rob mentioned, Jean de Jong, Francois Hougaard, Flo Lowe, a lot of players that you would expect to have been in the team had they been fit. But Morné Steyn, a little bit surprising for me, considering he kicked all our points in our last two test matches, and he's based at Stade Francais, and he knows the Northern Hemisphere conditions well. The fact that Alistair Coetzee has obviously decided this could well be the end of the road for Morné Steyn in the green and gold, cut him completely from both squads. So he obviously won't be there. Going to have to now start with another fluff, Elton Jantjies or Pat Lambie, with Andre Pollard still injured as well. You know, Lambie did play at 15 when he came back from his concussion against Ireland way back in June. I'm not sure if that means he's going to start at 15 again or he's going to have to move to 10 now. So a lot of questions still to be answered. But we are missing a lot of experienced players, as you said. Nice to see some fresh faces, as Rob mentioned, but at the same time, a little bit confusing when Alistair Coetzee said, show me the players that I should be including after the last test to the All Blacks. He suddenly found a couple of players. I'd be surprised if any of those 4 new caps even get a show in any of these matches, perhaps against the Italy, but that England test is just too big. The Welsh test is just too big at the end of the tour to start fiddling around with too many fringe players that have never played for the Box before and only really shone at Currie Cup level. So that Italy test sort of looms as the only opportunity, I think, for those 4 players, maybe 1 or 2 of them to be included on the bench, barring the odd injury, of course. The Barbars test, we don't have a great record in recent times against the Barbars. We sort of promised not to play Barbar rugby and throw it around, which is a little bit sad. I think the crowd will have a bit of a go at us if we don't swing the ball and we elect to kick for touch and kick penalties. So that'll be an interesting game to watch. Wembley is a fantastic stadium. Hopefully the crowd turns out for that game. But Alistair Coetzee, he's coming to the end of his first year in charge. Doesn't have a great record. Will want to finish on a high. I think he must be a little bit worried about all these experienced players, like you said, that he has, and that have picked up injuries and are missing. Dwayne Vermeulen again, a big loss. As Rob, I agree with Rob 100%. If he's good enough to play for Toulon, one of the biggest teams in world club rugby, you'd think that he'd be good enough to make the Springbok squad. He's used sort of the excuse of having his wife giving birth as well as a distraction, but I'm not too sure if I buy that the reasoning there. So interesting times for the Box. Alistair Coetzee after this Indaba for the last week. I'm not sure what's actually changed. We've promised to sort of copy the New Zealand way, yet we've still gone and picked a whole lot of overseas-based players, which New Zealand don't. So we're sort of doing a South African New Zealand way, if you like. So very interesting. Really can't wait for this tour. It should be a great way. It's always a nice way to end the year with a nice end of year tour to the UK. All teams in Europe playing each other. Eddie Jones wanted to get one over the Box again, having beaten the Box with Japan, obviously, at the World Cup last year. So fascinating. Really looking forward to it.